up in the mountains, my friends, where you can still watch an eagle soar on the wind. And I walk those hills with a smile on my face, and I can't get back to God's saving grace in the mountains.
Welcome back to our Hill to Die On podcast. I am your host, Chase Dowling, and this is what's going on in Forest Hill for the week of August 19th through the 25th, which, I mean, let's be honest, that is my anniversary, so I should know it because I'll be married to my beautiful wife for going on 14 years now. Isn't that impressive? 14 years. Got married 2012, August 25th. And it's been nothing but a joyride ever since. Gotta love it. We've done plenty of adventures and hope to see plenty more. So, yeah, can't go wrong there. And, hopefully the weather stays good. And speaking of the weather, let's get into this week's Banana Belt Weather Report. Thanks, Hannah. All right, folks. Hannah sends us another good one here because she does them on Sundays now. Thank the Lord. She says, we are looking at a very typical late August weather for out here on the hill this week. Today, we will have sunny to mostly sunny skies and temperatures climbing to a high of 91. Thursday looks like Wednesday, that's being identical twins. Nights will be fairly mild in the upper 60s, so leave a window open and enjoy it. Friday stays warm with a high of 88, but then we get a nice little weekend cool down. Saturday and Sunday should settle back into the 80s and mostly sunny skies. This weekend is pretty ideal setup for a lake day, hike, or a camping trip. So early next week will stay steadily the same with temperatures on both Monday and Tuesday with a high of 86. It'll still be dry and still very much summer in Forest Hill. We are sitting at about moderate allergy conditions this week. That's good news. Grass pollen is still lingering, and some of those late summer weeds are starting to take over as we move toward fall. Tree pollen, thankfully, is a non-issue right now, and if you're sensitive to grass or weeds, you may notice symptoms more on those hot and dry days, so the tissues may need to stay in the truck a little bit longer. Overall, moderate allergy conditions for Forest Hill for this week. I gotta say, these last couple weeks have been this last week has been fantastic. Really, the weather has been just fantastic. Can't ask for any better. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is this week's Banana Belt Weather Report. Before we jump into what's going on this week, since I'm just going to glass over it again, like I always do since we've been working this summer. Anyway, I'm going to go into what happened this last week. Kind of an eventful week. We had, Wednesday evening, there was a fire that started up by French Meadows. Ended up burning, I think the final count was about 91 acres, all above the lake. The old Catfish, as he's known, was up there doing fire watch for the Tree MD crew. Tell a friend, tell a Middleton, and actually, in this case, a drone, although there's a lot of Middleton blood that runs through him, called from Montana. Check this out. This is a Forest Hill story if you've ever heard one. So, Gage Drone, who's my wife's cousin because his mother is a Middleton, that's right, calls from Montana. Because for some reason, he's watching, the Duncan Peak outlook, the overlook there, and sees smoke and says, I think there's a fire in French Meadows. So then calls Aunt Nay and says, hey, call Whitney, who then calls me, and we knew there was a fire in freaking French Meadows before anybody else, all the way from Montana. Now that's due diligence right there, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Gage Drone, letting everybody know that there's a fire. And then I call the old partner, say, hey, Catfish, what the hell's going on up there? He had no clue, couldn't even see the smoke yet. That's how impressive technology is these days. So then, of course, the world was called out, and partner got a pretty good show. He said it was like World War II up there, just bombers and helicopters and everything flying. I mean, they had 737s and they had, B-31s or whatever the hell that is, or C-10s or whatever. Who knows? I'm not an airplane guy. I'm not going to pretend like I am. But yeah, they had the world flying and dumping retardant all over that area up there. Now, everybody goes, oh man, God, it should have been terrible. Luckily, there was quite a bit of work that's already been done up there, so it burnt through a bunch of work that had already been done, and then the work that wasn't done, I haven't been up there to see it since because they got to shut down and out of the woods. Dang the luck there. But still, and just for those of you who want to know, it was not TreeMD that started the fire. I can guarantee you that. So, we weren't even working near it. Couldn't even see the smoke. Well, until it started to actually build, and then you could see it. But anyways, I wouldn't go spreading that rumor. Just saying. Besides that, looks like they got that sucker under control, burning in the upper valley. We should probably put some cows on it maybe next year or the year after to kind of keep the brush and everything gone so we don't have to put more money into it. But who's going to listen? I don't know. Probably nobody. Because nobody of importance really watches this podcast except for all you people out there on the internet, webs, Facebook, peoples, my peeps. Just saying. That was pretty exciting. Then, Saturday, we did the Meet the Wildfires football team dinner there at Brewmasters. Big thank you and shout out to Kelsey Kerna. Big shout out to Tasha and Tina and all the moms that put that thing out and put that thing together. They did a fantastic job as always. And there was some money raised. Boy, let me tell you, I think at least $2,500, if not more. It was fantastic. We had a great time. Did the auction. Now, they didn't do desserts in the auction this time, which they normally do. They actually did the gift baskets and all that stuff in the auction. So that would actually end up working out pretty good. It was a lot of fun. Barb was having a good time. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, okay? And if you weren't there to see it, well, boo-hoo on you. And if you're there next year, maybe it'll happen again. Mike's got to go do another septic or two because Barb was having a good time. Just saying. Let's go, Channy. Come on. Come on. And then on Sunday night, now this is just the weekend recap. Sunday night, we had a local talent playing at Brewmasters. And we had a pretty good time playing some tunes there. Old Bryce Dowling out there showing what he can do. Of course, the place wasn't really that packed. I mean, sometimes it's best kept secrets. Just what I'm saying. Anyways, getting into this week's calendar, what is it? There's going to be, the Veterans Memorial Hall American Legion has their monthly dinner at 6 on Wednesday. Then, the pool has got, the pool's got some stuff going on. They're doing a summer slowdown of what they had going. So they got water aerobics Monday through Friday from 5 to 6, lap swim Fridays from 6 to 7. And that summer schedule runs through September 5th, so only for a couple more weeks here. Raising Wildfires daycares, enrolling infants through the age of 6 right now. Happy Mouth Bakery is hiring. They're looking for a part-time cook. Weekends are required. And just to throw a shout out, Forest Hills Heritage Festival is happening on September 12th. So we're gonna hit on that again here in just a little bit, but I want to get over our birthdays here. Who do we got for birthdays? We have on Wednesday we got Bernice Hanks and Jeff Baxter, and then Thursday it's Miranda Carrico, Benny Beatty, Angela Wade, let's go, Sherry Williams, and Mr. Joshua Miller himself. And on Friday is Jackson Jones. So all friends of the show, a couple a little bit more than others, but beggars can't be choosers because we're all friends here. So happy birthday from all of us to you. We wish it was our birthday so we could party too. Olay. Gotta throw the Olay in there. If you don't throw the Olay in there, then it's just not, just not worth it. What am I saying? Talking about. So that's gonna bring us into this week's outdoor report. So before I get into this week's outdoor report, I just want a little report on Andy. Yeah, that's right, Andy. Andy, you know where he was? Obviously, you can tell where he was. Yeah, he was out doing some San Francisco 49er, stuff, going to watch the team play. And he got me brought me back a season calendar magnet for the fridge. The wife is ecstatic about it. Ecstatic, just saying. So, everybody, Andy is still out doing his shenanigans like always, and probably doing things that a couple of us would rather be doing or have never gotten the chance to do. And of course, nobody calls and says, "Hey, do you want to go with me?" And I'm going to go do this thing. So just think about your friends that are fans of sports. Anyway, getting right into this week's outdoor report, Hannah, of course, sends us another good one here, and she says, our big outdoor story this week is one that's hitting especially close to home. The Talbot Fire, burning up near French Meadows Reservoir. The fire started last Wednesday near Talbot Campground and grew quickly through some pretty rugged, heavily forested terrain. Firefighters have thrown significant resources at it, and including smoke jumpers, aircraft ground crews. So the smoke jumpers, a lot of people don't realize this, but where that fire was burning towards, it was burning towards Picayune Valley. And then once it gets into Picayune, it's all wilderness area. So they can't use dozers, they can't use planes, they can't use any of that stuff. It has to be all done by hand, and they're nothing motorized. I don't even necessarily know if they can use a chainsaw on that. So they had to stop it before it got into Picayune. And then everybody knows on the other side of Picayune is Squaw Valley. Sorry, Olympic Valley, Squaw Valley. Just saying. So, thankfully, fire behavior has since moderated and crews made solid progress fairly quickly. As of Sunday, the fire was at 75% contained and had burned up to 93 acres. Now it's, everybody knows, 95% contained. So it's also a pretty powerful reminder of why all the forest health work happening around French Meadows matters. TreeMD are heroes. Oh, come on. Jesus. Really? See, I should read these things before she actually sends them to me. I'd have probably cut that part out. Probably going to do it anyway. So, and don't you forget it. This is our backyard, and when fires get into these forests, it doesn't take much for a small incident to become a big problem. Now, she wrote that. Okay, should have read that. Anyways, what I'm going to say, though, is everybody that's out there doing forestry work we're not heroes by any means. Let's not get that twisted. But they are doing an integral part to actually keep our forests healthy, because who else is doing it? California sure ain't trying to do it. I mean, they put out the money for this stuff, but they're still importing 80% of their lumber. 80%. And when you import 80% of your lumber, that means you're not using 80% of the lumber that you could be using out of the Sierra Nevadas to keep the goddamn fire behavior and all the fire suppression lower. So think about that, folks. What do we need to be doing? We need to be probably making it a little bit easier for, mom and pop mills to actually mill their own lumber instead of just everything getting shipped down to SPI. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Wouldn't it be fantastic if we had a way to grade all of our own lumber at a cheap price instead of, relying on lumber graders that, when you look up the regulations, you have to actually do it for 10 years before they'll even let you become a lumber grader. So maybe let's make that a little bit more accessible. Maybe make it a little bit more accessible for everybody else to do the thing, so we could actually make it pay to manage the woods. Just saying. So, for God's sakes, all French Meadows campgrounds and all recreation areas around French Meadows remain closed because of the fire. While the evacuation warning was lifted on Saturday, the Forest Service recreation closure, it is not still in effect. So that's the only issue we have with her writing these things on Sunday, is because, well, the recreation ban was lifted. It's no longer through December 31st. We can all go back up there, go fishing, go camping. So that is something they actually did, because everybody was kind of worried that they were going to keep us out of the woods until December 31st. And they did a good thing, and they didn't keep us out of our woods until that date. So, but there are still some, I think there are still some closures on some of the trails. So Western States Trail closed from Forest Road 62 to the Granite Chief Wilderness boundary. Pacific Crest Trail closed between the trailhead to Placer County 9001 Road and Barker Pass Trailhead, and Tahoe Rim Trail is, I think, still closed. So you might want to double check on those, because those ones, I'm not 100% sure. All I know is they lifted that recreation closure. So for now, maybe give the firefighters some room to work. Check the Tahoe National Forest alerts before heading that direction, and pick another adventure to have this week if possible. If not, you know what? They lifted the closure, so you don't necessarily have to do that. Lastly, if you're already wondering what fall is going to look like here in Forest Hill, the Farmer's Almanac has weighed in. Though the first day of fall isn't officially until September 22nd, their 2026 fall forecast calls for pretty normal September across the Pacific Southwest, followed by a cooler than average October. And for Northern California, they're leaning towards slightly above average rainfall as well as we move into the fall. So now that's a regional forecast, not a Forest Hill specific prediction, but it could mean we're looking at warm September days, cooler October temperatures, and hopefully a little more moisture on the way, which is needed. And there's a bummer piece of information to go along with this. The 2026 edition is actually the final Farmer's Almanac after more than 200 years of publication. And to that we say, boo! Boo, boo, boo! All right, everything's available on the internet, and you can find all this information. But still, after 200 years of publication, 2026 is going to be their final. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is this week's Outdoor Report. So, folks, getting right back into it here. You know, I was going to hit on this real quick. So, the Heritage Festival, which is happening on, what is it? I knew it was like September 12th or something, right? Where'd we go here? I lost it. Yes, September 12th at the Memorial Park. They are going to be having some gunfights, theatrical gunfights, little pew pew going on up there. So everybody should be happy to get up there and see that. Don't forget it. Put it on your calendar, September 12th at the park. And with that said, we're going to get right into this week's Thoughts for the Shitter. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this week's Thoughts for the Shitter is going to be basically based off, just let me buy the damn tires. You see, bureaucrats rarely wake up and think, how can I screw everybody's day up today? Right? They don't really think that too much. But that's almost what they do every time. Bureaucrats inevitably make things worse on everybody. So they usually think they're helping. They're going to try to save you some fuel, or they're going to try to save you some energy costs, or, try to make the environment better. Now, some of the stuff that they do to make the environment better, I agree, is pretty good. I mean, California in the 70s, the smog and, the Sacramento probably wasn't too bad, but in the LA area, it was pretty freaking terrible. And so they tried to come up with some emission laws and things like that, could make the air that we breathe a little bit better. Now, they did that, but they keep going. And, they try to make our fuel better, which actually, in the state of California, if I take my diesel, so they got the B20 diesel right here, right, in California, B20, which is biodiesel. If it drops below 30 degrees here in the Sierras where we work, my whole tank will gel up, and I have to put, I don't know how much additive into that tank to keep it from gelling with the B20. It's ridiculous. Plus, I only get about 15 miles to the gallon in my truck, but as soon as I get to Nevada and I fuel up with Nevada fuel, I automatically jump from 17 to 19 miles per gallon. It's ridiculous how much more fuel efficient everything is once you just use regular petroleum instead of bio. And all the diesel that it takes to make the bio, all the refining and everything else like that, refinery costs that come up with it. So California's like, oh, we'll make it better, but they basically are making Californians broke because we pay, in taxes and extra refinery costs on average about $1.50 more than every other state in the United States. Now, which is pretty ridiculous. So let's get into the thing that I just heard about. I think it was today or yesterday it came out. There is a new regulation that the California, Energy Commission, CEC, came out with by I think it's 2032. They're going to try to make our tires less resistant and all this other stuff. So when we're rolling down the road, that it actually, we don't have as much drag on our vehicles, especially with the electric vehicles that are, obviously burning coal and coal plants, in some states anyway still. So we're really not saving anything on the environment there. But anyways, that's besides the point. What I'm trying to say is they're going to try to save us money. Oh, these tires will actually save you money in the long run. The problem is the tires that they're wanting us to use are going to be so they're going to cost more to make. So they're going to cost us, if it saves us $60 a year in energy costs, the tires are probably going to cost us an extra $150 to $200 a year. So are they really making our lives better? I think not. Bureaucrats need to quit let the free market handle the damn thing. If the free market handled it, if you go, hey, you know what? Because maybe people want tires that will get them better fuel mileage in the long run and want to pay for that. How much mileage? Who knows? But say, hey, this tire's better on fuel mileage than the other tire, but don't take away 70% of the tires by 2032 that are going to be available in the state of California that we have right now. So I have a business that I have work trucks and things of that nature that we have to put tires on all the time, not to mention the wife's car and the kids' cars and all that other stuff. And right now, if you take away 70% of the tires that I'm able to buy, that's going to drive the costs up on those other tires. And I buy, pretty cheap tires, whatever, we go down to Tire Depot or sometimes Les Schwab or whatever. But if you take away 70% of the market or what's going to be available in California just because of the rolling resistance, right, by 2032 and over the next 6 years, what do you think that's going to do to our tire costs? Our tire costs are going to go through the roof. Now, obviously, I'm, might be jumping the gun here a little bit. Maybe they come up with some great tire rubber technology and everything else becomes cheap and everything like that. But so far, over the last 40 years that I've been on this planet, nothing that the government has ever done has ever helped us in any meaningful way. So, bureaucrats that are appointed by the governor and approved by the California State Senate sit here and make these rules. We didn't elect them. Now, we did elect the senators that approved them, but we didn't elect the California Energy Commission by one way or the other. And the California Energy Commission can have such an effect on our laws in the state of California. We need to be able to vote them in. I think it's a travesty. I think it's just ridiculous that we can't have a say in what the California Energy Commission actually does. And we can't put people on that Energy Commission or vote them off in any meaningful way. This is, to me, it's ridiculous. I mean, you might like or dislike the people that are representing you in the California State House, or even in the federal State House, or even at a county level, but at least they're representing you, the voter, because the voter has a little bit of control on whether they're doing a good job or not. The California Energy Commission has zero. They are not beholden to anybody. They are appointed by the Senate, or not approved by the Senate, but appointed by the governor. So there you go. I guess you got to make the governor happy. In the state of California, we know how that works. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I just had to go on a little bit of a rant there. And that's just something to ponder while you're dropping them off down yonder. Tires. You never believe that tires will be... Well, actually, that's not true. Tires piss me off all the time. I'm constantly mad at said tires because they blow out on you. They overinflate. They wear too fast or not enough, especially if you're driving Mosquito Ridge. Well, they never wear not enough. They always wear too fast when you're driving on Mosquito Ridge Road. I mean, chip seal is basically like 35 grit sandpaper. If you looked at like a piece of wood and how far fast take it. I mean, we got to buy a set of tires every year driving on that dang road. Or actually, really, it's about a set and a half. We'll go with that. Anyways, and then they want to try to, sell logs for $400 $1,000 or $350 $1,000. And when you can only get 2 turns out of French Meadows, and then log truck drivers, everybody wonders why the cost of everything else. Actually, that's not true. Log truck drivers are pretty cheap. They're probably one of the cheapest things there are out there. For flip's sakes. I didn't really end that segment, did I? I'm still ranting and raving. Anyways, let's have a little fun. Ladies and gentlemen, this week, I found another Sasquatch story. So let's get right into it. And this week's Sasquatch. So, ladies and gentlemen, this week's Sasquatch story takes us north of the border up to the old Canada country up there, up to British Columbia in about 1924. And just to go, even the Sasquatches up there, when you listen to this story, are polite. They kidnap you and don't kill you. That's actually pretty good. So the story begins in 1924, like I said, with a Canadian prospector and woodsman named Albert Ostrom. Now, Ostrom was looking for an old abandoned gold mine near the Toba Inlet when he started hearing stories from a local indigenous guide about strange, hairy, wild people living in the mountains up there. Now, naturally, instead of hearing that and thinking, well, maybe I'll prospect somewhere else, not Ostrom's style, of course, not anybody's style back in 1924, really, because they were men, they had testosterone. Yeah, just saying. Ostrom headed deeper into the woods alone because, well, it was Canada and that's what you did, and there wasn't a whole lot of people around, so you just went deeper into the woods, like modern-day Alaska, really. So he established a base camp and soon noticed something strange. Food and supplies were starting to be disturbed at night or when he was gone out looking for other stuff. So Ostrom suspected that an animal was doing most of this stuff, so he started keeping his rifle with him while he was sleeping, along with most of his belongings. Well, then that's when things got really weird, you see. So one night he woke up and discovered while he was in a sleeping bag that he'd been picked up. That's right. He'd been picked up, the whole sleeping bag, him and his sleeping bag, and was being carried through the woods. Whatever had him was, he said, was about 8 foot tall and big. So Ostrom claimed he was carried through the mountains for roughly around 3 hours before finally being dropped. When daylight came, though, he discovered something even stranger. He wasn't dealing with one creature. He claimed he'd been brought to what amounted to a Sasquatch family campground. That's right, Sasquatch family campground. Because apparently in Canada, Sasquatches live together in campgrounds. There was one huge adult male with one adult female, a younger male, and a younger female. and for approximately 6 days, Ostrom claimed he lived among them. Now, he watched them eat vegetation, communicate with each other, and move around their mountain home. He estimated the adult male stood around 8 feet tall and was enormously powerful. Enormously powerful. Of course, I mean, think about a guy that's 8 foot tall, but then weighed like 400 pounds. Like, he would, I mean, just naturally be pretty powerful. I mean, think about it. So what's that? Oh, God, what's that one guy that was on, like, Game of Thrones? I never watched Game of Thrones, but there was the Mountain or something like that, and he's supposed to be pretty big. Anyway, apparently the Sasquatches weren't particularly violent towards him, but they just wouldn't let him leave. So, which, actually, if you think about it, I mean, they weren't violent towards him and they wouldn't let him leave, but you can hear the Canadian voice like, hey, don't go anywhere, because, we can't let you know where we live, and I got the kids and the family here. Sorry I picked you up. I just wanted your stuff. Just saying. Freaking Sasquatches are damn Canadians. Anyway, eventually, Albert decided he had enough of being the world's first involuntary Bigfoot exchange student, and that's where chewing tobacco might have saved the day. So Ostrom carried a tin of snuff, and the large male Sasquatch became curious about it. So Ostrom handed him some. The creature apparently ate, like, pretty much all, like, just put the whole thing in his mouth, and which was a bad decision on his part, because according to Ostrom, the Sasquatch immediately became extremely sick and started to desperately trying to clear his throat, while the big guy was experiencing what may have been history's first documented Sasquatch nicotine overdose, which, I mean, it was like, I remember the first time I ever tried chewing tobacco. And kids, don't try this, but I was trying to be cool with my older brother. We were out on a camping trip down on the North Fork of the American River. I remember it like it was yesterday. And, of course, my brother and his buddy were doing the things, which ended up being my brother-in-law. Funny how things work out. Anyway, like, at that time, like, we're doing all the rebellious things. We're down on the North Fork American River by ourselves, hiked in there. You know, they're 12, I'm 8, or they're 13, 14, I'm 8, and they got a can of chew from my brother-in-law's dad, I think is where he stole the can of chew from. So they're chewing it. Was cherry skull, and I was like, let me smell that. Boy, that smells good. Let me try some. At 8 years old, that was a bad move, and boy, it was, well, probably one of the best moves to keep me from chewing for a long time. Of course, when I was 19, I started chewing by myself and chewed for 20 years. But anyways, that's besides the point. What I'm saying is, got me sicker than a dog. And anybody that's ever had chew and overdid it and maybe swallowed a little bit knows what I'm talking about. Like, especially for your first time. It gets you pretty tipped over. So, anyways, this is when this Bigfoot, after eating this whole can of, Copenhagen or whatever the hell it was in 1924, who knows? Of course, Copenhagen's been around since 1822. You know how I know that? Because I chewed for 20 years. Don't do that, kids. Just saying. Anyway, he was sitting there throwing up or doing whatever the hell he was. So Ostrom decided, well, hell, I'm getting out of here. And he made his way back to civilization. So here's where the story gets even stranger. Albert didn't publicly tell the story until about 1957, more than 30 years later. He said originally he kept quiet because he figured nobody would believe him, which, fair enough. I mean, I wouldn't really believe that, feeding Sasquatches. I mean, it's not a believe, but why would you make that story up? Who knows? When journalists and researchers eventually questioned him, Ostrom reportedly stuck to the basic story for the remainder of his life. There is no physical evidence proving any of this happened. No photographs, no hair, no bones, no confirmed location, just the testimony of Albert Ostrom. So, was he actually kidnapped by a family of Sasquatches? Who knows? Did an old prospector invent one a hell of a story? Possible. Or did something happen in those British Columbia mountains that we've never been able to explain? Nobody knows. I mean, let's be real. But if Albert Ostrom was telling the truth, we learned two extremely important things in 1924. Sasquatches apparently live in family groups, and Copenhagen might be an effective Bigfoot repellent, which, I mean, until he tries it again and then he's hooked and then you got to see him at the mini mart every day. Of course, then we could get actually a sample of his hair. And, I mean, I don't know if Sandy would sell to him, though. She might. Anyways, folks, if you don't know, Now you know. Well, folks, I hope you find this week's Sasquatch story and the whole podcast to be, informative, maybe funny. And for those of you out there, I need an intern. I do. I need an intern. I got to talking to some people at the wildfires deal this week, and maybe there's a high school kid that wants to, maybe we can come up with some extra credit or something for the podcast so we can actually have some good research done. Not by me. I mean, today I was able to do it just because we're off work because of the fire in French Meadows and don't know when we're going to get back to work. Of course, today was an E-Day anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, can't even be doing the hoot owl and not even going to work at 2 o'clock in the morning. We just can't work at all. Anyways, so, I mean, today's wasn't bad. But, you know, when we're out here doing these things, somebody that could actually do the research for the Sasquatch portion of it, do the research for some thoughts for the shitter, and, help me edit and do all that stuff when I don't have the time. If anybody knows anybody, of course, I do this out of a labor of love. I can't pay you. But maybe we can do an intern thing through the high school, or maybe somebody knows, like, somebody needs college credits to actually put this thing out there for some media, something or other. Who knows? But put the word out, folks. Looking for an intern. I mean, they can't be too dorky either. I mean, they got to be kind of some cool kid, maybe. Well, they could be dorky. Actually, probably the dorky ones will probably be better. Anyway, just saying. Hope you had a good week. Hope you have a good weekend. And then I'll leave you with this Robert Francis little bit of wisdom here. So the other day, police officer, of course, PCSO, who else would it be, came to my door, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, your dog is chasing a kid, or has been chasing kids on a bike." I just shut the door in his face. My dog doesn't even have a bike. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you have a good week. We'll be seeing you on the next one.
Whistle Punk Pete, he stood only 5 feet. He wasn't gonna get any bigger, but his main ambition was to hold a position of hook tender and head rigger.